just some major programs with respect to business immigration in Canada. I'll talk a little bit about who I am. We'll talk about goals and objectives. Then we'll start getting into the pathways to start business in Canada and what are the requirements and what does the process look like. And then we'll talk about at the end kind of your journey into Canada, how long that takes, that sort of thing. So who am I?
Colin, quick question for you. Do you mind if we're gonna do the recording?
Colin is on mute.
Colin, looks like you are on mute. We don't hear you. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I literally didn't even realize that. Sorry about that. Okay, let me,
no worries.
let me go through that again.
Yeah, no worries. Do you mind if we're gonna do the recording?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, so yeah, basically today's presentation, I'll run through it pretty quickly. It's focused on business immigration. So how do, let's say yourself coming from Ukraine, how do you immigrate to Canada through a business visa? So I'll talk a little bit about myself. I'll definitely go through that fast. I'll talk goals and objectives for the presentation. What are the different pathways to start a business in Canada as an immigrant? Once you understand that, then you can understand the general requirements to immigrate on a business visa. And then we'll talk about your journey to Canada, kind of how long it takes, what's required in terms of investment, that sort of thing. So who am I? I've been in this business now for about, I've had my own company now for 4.5 years. My background, I've worked in foreign exchange industry. So we're a global company that provides B2B payments and foreign exchange solutions in UK, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada. Also have experience in energy industry, utilities, startups, governments, etc. And one of my accomplishments, so to speak, is I've helped bring immigrants into Canada and build business in almost every province and territory in Canada. So outside of that, I'm a mentor at the Edmonton Region Immigration Employment Council and an instructor at a local university in Edmonton. So goals and objectives for this presentation, really, just overall, I want you folks to gain an understanding of the different pathways to immigrate to Canada on a business visa. And once you understand that, we'll talk about process, requirements, and what the journey actually looks like. So, two main programs here. As you can see, there's the federal business program, and then there's the provincial business programs. For the purpose of this presentation, I'll focus mainly on the federal business programs because the provincial business programs, there's many of them, but really there's not that much, doesn't make sense to go through that in today's presentation as the federal programs really, they're very broad and they cover a lot of cases and they're the most popular. So basically, there's 3 different programs for federal. There's the intra-company transfer, there's the LMIA owner-operator, and then there's the startup visa. Now, the title of the presentation of the slide here is different business programs to address different Canadian business needs. So each of these programs really, they address a different need in Canada. So for example, at the top here, intra-company transfer. Those are if you have an existing business in Ukraine, let's say, and then you want to expand that business into Canada. So you go through that program. For LMA owner-operator, this is really a very overarching program and probably the most popular. Probably literally represents probably 75% of my business. And it's either, the program enables you to either purchase a business or start up a new business. But these are usually traditional businesses. Because the startup visa program, that's primarily for technology and innovative companies to expand into Canada. So basically, if you have a really innovative idea, or you're already running a business that's very technology focused, the startup visa program is for you. And you'd basically apply and a designated organization such as an incubator would actually help launch your business, and you work with them. So in terms of general requirements, obviously the first step is you really have to meet all immigration admissibility requirements. So I'm certainly not an immigration consultant, but I mean, general requirements are obviously you can't have a criminal record. You can't come from certain countries in Canada. Just there's very overarching immigration requirements that must be met. Generally speaking as well, you need 2 years senior management or entrepreneurial experience before you even actually apply for a business visa. So you can't just, let's say, want to purchase a business if you have no actual business experience. So it's helpful if you do have it in your country of residence, because we use that experience of yours to actually build out your business in Canada, and the Canadian immigration officials like that. There's really 3 options. There's purchasing, starting up, and expanding. With purchasing, realistically, about 150K USD is the minimum typically to own a business 100%. But there are some options where in some cases you can invest, let's say, 50,000 to 100,000 on a business, and you'll only own about 51% of the business. So I would say if you're looking to come to Canada via business immigration, this is really your minimum, 150K to own 100% of a business. If you want to start up a business, it's a little bit more affordable, but you must be willing to invest in equipment, facilities, and other assets before you actually apply for a business visa. And this could run you about, let's say, $20,000 to $50,000 realistically before you even apply. And then if you expand an existing business, the key here is you must have an existing enterprise in Ukraine, let's say, and have certain business knowledge and experience that can actually benefit Canada. So for example, about a couple months ago, I brought over a gentleman who he works in South Africa, and he works in the mining industry, has his own company, and he has an explosives company in South Africa. So we're able to leverage that niche experience and bring it over to Canada because it does benefit Canada. So yeah, that's just an example of one of the ways, but mainly what I want you to get out of this is there's 3 real options for business. There's the purchase of a business, there's you starting up a business, and then there's the expanding your own business into Canada, okay? Outside of that, investment into Canada cannot be a passive investment. So you can't just buy a business and just kind of sit on it. The main point of the immigration programs in Canada is you must be actively engaged as the owner and operator. So you have to have direct involvement with managing the business. Your title within the business in Canada has to be either president or CEO of the business. So you ultimately, that's really the key here. It's not like a real estate investment where you can just buy real estate. It's not that simple and not that easy. You do have to be actively engaged. In addition to that, any business you buy, you must hire at least 1 Canadian or permanent resident at a minimum. So that requires some cash as well. So if you're planning on coming to Canada, it's certainly will cost you. You'll certainly have to show a proof of funds if you want to buy a business, because you'll need the funds to pay for staff, of course. So key here though is you must hire at least 1 Canadian, because the Canadian officials, they want to build out Canada. You must hire 1 Canadian or permanent resident at a minimum. So I talked intercompany transfer. I'm not going to go too much into detail there. Really, again, it's existing company in Ukraine, and then you can extend that into Canada. LMI owner-operator, 2 options, as I mentioned. There's either the purchasing of the business or the starting up of a business. Keeping in mind, if you're purchasing the business, you can actually get a relative or a family member, if they're a Canadian citizen, to invest with you in the business. So that's key. And a lot of my clients actually go that route because it does cost a fair bit of money to actually buy a business. I already talked about you must employ at least one Canadian, as well as realistically you should expect to pay 100% of a business $150,000. With both of these pathways, you do need an excellent business plan and financial forecast. So it typically makes sense to hire someone who knows what they're doing. I'm certainly not the only vendor that does this, but generally speaking, you need a very solid business plan, even before applying for immigration. This startup visa program, me personally, I really enjoy this program, as it's literally the quickest pathway into permanent residency. In some cases, I've seen it take about 7 months, just like very, very quick. But these are 4 more innovative, definitely very innovative companies that already typically have a very good idea, very innovative business, and bringing that over to Canada. And certain organizations will actually help out your business grow in Canada. So I have some examples up top of some of the organizations. There's actually 85 of them. So there's a lot of different organizations you can apply to. And in terms of industry, we're talking about, again, very innovative industries. So we're thinking here clean tech, renewables, fintech, technology, e-commerce, online companies, that sort of thing. Very, very technology focused. So in terms of businesses to start up, I provided some examples here of ones I've personally done. This is an exhaustive list, but it's just I tried to really put like a broad range of companies. So, for example, brought over science and technical companies, trucking company you can buy, a daycare I built out with a client, construction companies, a restaurant, fuel, petrol. The bottom line here is really you can start any type of business, but what we try to do is we try to match up your business experience with the business in Canada. So we make that process very seamless for you. But really, other than the legal businesses, obviously you can't start that in Canada, but there's a broad range of businesses you can start up and or purchase in Canada. Just move my slides here. Okay, next. So where can you start a business in Canada? I put this picture here just to show that literally you can start a business in Canada anywhere. That's the beauty of business immigration in Canada. A lot of my clients typically are in the Vancouver area, Toronto area, Calgary area, and actually a lot of them lately have been around kind of the Newfoundland, Nova Scotia area. But whether it's a major city or a tiny place in Canada of 1,000 people, you can immigrate anywhere in Canada, just depending on the business and depending on your case. So your journey to enter Canada and open a business, I have here the minimum time to immigrate and actually become a PR is about 1 to 5 to 2 years. That's typical. And the maximum time can actually take you 7 years. Working with the federal business programs though, typically it usually, for my clients anyway, it's taken roughly about 2 to 3 years typically to become a PR on a business visa. So the steps are, it's fairly complex process. So it does make sense to hire like professionals in the industry to handle your case. But how it goes typically is you'll inquire with someone like myself, and I have a partner immigration consultant, and we'll formulate a strategy. We'll look at your business, and we'll look at your current business, your background, your experience to determine a strategy to expand, start up, or purchase. And then from there, you'll come over to Canada on temporary visit visa. You'll check out Canadian locations, you'll check out businesses, and then once we have a general understanding in terms of what kind of business you want to buy, we'll start working on your application, you're building your profile, providing all the supporting documentation, and then it's submitted to officials. It's either approved or rejected. Nothing's guaranteed, of course. And then you can begin settling in Canada. So it takes about, as I was saying, takes about 1 to 5 to 2 years minimum, but roughly it usually takes, for my clients, usually takes about 2 to 3 years. Outside of that, why invest in Canada? Well, we have some of the top cities in the world in terms of global livability. We have a highly stable political system, and our Canadian economy is just well positioned to be very strong in the future, after COVID-19, of course. What do I provide? Well, I'm your trusted business advisor and on contact. I work primarily with immigration consultants to formulate a strong strategy so you can immigrate. I provide services such as providing potential business listings, and I help you. I'm on the ground to purchase a business in Canada. I also provide all the supporting documentation, whether that's a business plan, whether that's a business concept, any other business documentation you need. I'm basically on the ground contact to take care of that for you. And as well, I provide introductions and referrals to some of my business contacts that help not only your application, but growing your business. So final thoughts. Business immigration, just very, very complex, with lots of moving parts, so requires professionals to handle your case. Canada's a highly investable country, very stable political system. That's a good thing, of course, and we're well positioned from COVID. As I mentioned earlier, there's 3 main ways to build business in Canada: expanding your business, starting up a new business, or purchasing a business. With the purchase of a business, I'd say the majority of immigrants do that. And then there's various businesses in Canada you can buy. It really depends. And outside of that, you can become a PR in as fast as 1 year. I talked about the start of visa program, but that's not typical. The typical would be about 2 to 3 years to become a PR. So that's all I have. I ran through that really quickly. So now let's just let's go to some questions. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, Colin, I wanted to thank you